Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for everyone joining us on here in Zoom and also at the conference. This session is 5A, Getting Out by Going In, GOGI Tools, Positive Decision-Making Tools. So, of course, you heard from the ladies of GOGI yesterday. You guys are going to hear from the men. Woo! So here we have on Zoom Coach Johnny and Coach James, and here in person we have Joe, Muti, Simi, Poteki, and Siolo, Toala. So I'll give the mic to them to introduce themselves and get started.
Hello, and welcome to Cover Talks, GOGI panel. My name is Simi Poteki, and I'm the co-founder of Cover Talks, Knowledge About Violence Always, a Pacific Island men's group that meet online every Thursday night to share and discuss how we can be part of the solution in our families, churches, and communities, starting from the inside out. I am pleased to be here today with my GOGI family. GOGI stands for Going Out by Going In. I was introduced to GOGI long time ago when Cover Talk was started by a young Tongan man. I knew him and his family. They would show up at Cover Talks as he was returning home from prison again. I was impressed with his ability to present topics and facilitate discussion, and he shared that he had earned to be a GOGI coach in prison. I have Susie call Coach Taylor and introduce us as Cover Talks to her. Coach Taylor shared that GOGI was a prison program only. Susie told her that based on the change that I saw in Tevita, that everyone needs GOGI. It was very hard from the beginning because GOGI started with us as we started Cover Talk. But a lot of people from the state and the county, they say it won't work with what we're trying with. We're trying to speak out against domestic violence. And I told them, I don't know how, but I think it will work fine. So they told us they're not going to fund us because of that. And I told them, that's okay, they can take their fund, but it's not going to stop me trying to connect the two together. And it's taken us a few years to finally realize that the problem with the state and the local government, they want us to stay with domestic violence. They don't want us to help the abuser. And my idea, I told them that the abuser, when they serve their time, they'll come back to society. And what we're going to do then, it's time to connect GOGI. And they still deny me for that, so I keep doing it. And now we fully understand how we can work together. Last year, Coach Taylor contacted us and let us know he now had a community power-up program. And we jumped at the opportunity to learn. 4 of us started the training process. Myself, Susie, and Bernice over, and Paul Tuivai, who was the director of Cover Talks, passed away just recently. And my favorite topic in GOGI is ultimate freedom. You see, when we follow within the law, we will finally get ultimate freedom. As Benjamin Franklin once said, only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. With that said, I ask myself why, and I realize that because freedom requires self-control. The freer the society, the more self-control is necessary. If the majority of the people can control themselves, then the state will have to step in and control them. But we want the ultimate freedom so no state, nobody will control our own destination. With that said, I'm proud and it's a pleasure for me to introduce to you James, who is a member of our weekly GOGI Lifers group. Over here in Utah, we call him a GOGI missionary. So thank you all, and here is Coach James.
Thank you, Simi, and thank you to everybody that showed up here on today to listen to this conference. My name is Coach James. I'm a formerly incarcerated lifer. I've spent over 30 years in California Department of Corrections and went through the juvenile justice system. My controlling case on my third strike was corporal injury to spouse domestic violence. My troubles started when I was about 14 years old, and my dad came and picked me up, and he proceeded to tell me that him and my mom were going to separate. And at that time, when he told me that they were going to separate, he told me that in fact he had adopted me when I was a child, and that I wasn't his biological father, and that my biological father was gay. And he proceeded to tell me that my little brother was going to go with him, and my little sister was going to go with my mom. And so naturally, because he wasn't my dad, I was going with my mom as well. So at 14 years old, this was a difficult situation. I didn't know about the domestic violence, both physical, psychological, spiritual, and financial that my mom and dad had been experiencing. I was unaware of a lot of things, like that he was even my adopted father. So at 14 years old, I began to abuse alcohol and drugs, and I started a criminal lifestyle. I started to lash out and rebel. I felt like a black sheep in the family. I felt like I had a lot of different identity issues. So I started going to juvenile hall. In juvenile hall, I would go, and I realized very quickly that it was a very different environment and that I had to adjust. And one thing that helped me adjust with everybody was sports. Oftentimes we would go out to the rec yard, and I would be picked last until they realized that I could shoot a basketball or throw a pitch or field a ball, or I could throw a football, and I could do it well. And so that's how I connected as a youth. I connected through athletics and sports. I grew up playing soccer as a kid. But what happened was I started to become friends with these kids in school, and I became very resentful towards my family, the community that I came from. I started to connect with other people, and this evolved my criminal activity. So fast forward, I'm addicted to alcohol and drugs. In 1991, I get convicted of a armed robbery and burglary, and I signed a plea bargain for 9 years in prison. I started my first prison term in August of 1991. And this is after going through several juvenile justice camps, 24-hour schools, vision quests, and now I was in the California Department of Corrections. And this created a huge wedge between my family and me. And everybody was reaching out, trying to help me, and I was resistant to all the help. And all I really wanted to do was use alcohol and drugs and escape from all the inner trauma that I was experiencing. The residential burglary that I got convicted of was my girlfriend's parents' house. It's something that I'm deeply ashamed of and everything. And at the time when they offered me 9 years, I took a 9-year plea bargain, and I went to prison in 1991 and did 4 years, 8 months on a sentence of 9 years. I got out, and as a long-term offender, I didn't do any self-reflection or work on myself or work on any substance abuse. I just told myself if I just didn't commit crimes, if I wasn't out stealing from people, that I would be okay. But I continued to use alcohol and drugs, got into a relationship entirely too fast, and ended up inflicting corporal injury on my girlfriend, which resulted in a sentence of 26 years to life. At 26 years old, I went to prison for 26 years to life with a life crime that I was very ashamed of. So I went into prison, and over a 3 or 4 year period of time, with nobody to talk to, with nobody to vent to about the crimes that I've committed because of the shame and the guilt and the fear that was surrounding that, I started to create a different identity in prison. And I became ultra violent inside of prison. I started to stab other inmates. I've spent 12 years in California Department of Corrections, the security housing unit, for disciplinary actions in prison. I was actively at one time trying to murder my cellmates, so I didn't have to explain why I had a controlling case of corporal injury to spouse. Because I read this quote one time, and they said the one sure way of a lesser felony is to create a greater felony, and it will cover it up. So I was going, and I didn't feel like that I deserved a life sentence either. And but I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to deal with it. I was spiraling out of control. I just told myself, I'm James from San Diego. I just don't care. And so I embraced my life sentence, and I was living a hopeless existence. Around 2012, when the California 3 strikes law got voted on by the voters and the law changed, San Diego Department of San Diego courthouse contacted me and told me that I was eligible for resentencing because my life crime actually is in a category of nonviolent, non-serious, although it was a very violent act. But class of corporal injury to spouse is by definition nonviolent, non-serious, so I qualified. And they told me, don't get in any trouble and we'll bring you out to court. The only problem was that while I was in prison, I had been collected 2 attempted murders on inmates, battery on a peace officer, and several different assault with weapons inside of prison, trying to run from the fact that I was in fact an abuser. So I became more abusive to the people that were around me and the community that was around me. And somehow that made sense at that time in my life. And I created this new identity of being somebody not to be messed with. When I went out to court, hope kind of entered the equation, and it happened really fast. I got picked up from Higginbotham State Prison. I got shuttled down to Chino State Prison, and I went to court. But when I got to court, the judge said, there's no way that we're releasing you. And there was 198 lifers, nonviolent, non-serious lifers that went out to court in San Diego County. And there was 190 lifers that were released through that law. And there was 8 of us that they kept. And so I was crushed, but hope entered the equation. So I got sent back to prison. I got transferred to Kern Valley State Prison. And that's when I was introduced to GOGI. Coach Taylor and Coach David came into GOGI State Prison and changed my life. They introduced me to a set of tools that has very much made me a community member, made me a family member, an uncle, a brother, a friend, an employee. And it gave me an opportunity through the workbooks that GOGI provides to actually start to work on and write out without having to say it out loud to other people what I was going through. And this was the first time that I was able to start dealing with some of the domestic violence issues, some of the family issues, some of the substance abuse and anger issues that I was dealing with. And so I would do these workbooks and I would send them to the GOGI mailroom, and GOGI would issue me a certificate and say, here, you did a good job. This is your certificate for my life story. This is your certificate for victim impact. This is your certificate for anger management. So I began to start to identify myself and work on my self-esteem issues through this process of actually writing in these workbooks that GOGI provided us. And there's everything from leadership to positive decisions to my life story, criminal thinking, etc. Along with those books, GOGI also has a Teach Me How to GOGI. It has With Love Coach. It has the Power Up Your Life the GOGI Way. All these books I started to devour. And I started to write book reports on it. They've created curriculums with syllabuses that actually outline. All you need is to do is start on page 1 and read for a little bit and write what your thoughts are. Go from page 12 to 24, write what your thoughts are. And as this was happening, I was trying to put together a program because I thought, now I'm going to go to board. Now that there might be a chance for me to get out. And so it became very important. I joined all the other inmate leisure time activities in prison and everything. And what surprised me was the things that I had been writing in these notebooks actually started coming out of my mouth, because my thoughts lead to my words and my words lead to my actions. And I learned this through Positive Choices, the 3 GOGI tools. And so it was amazing how spending this time working on these issues, because remember, I was so fearful and shameful and guilty about being able to openly talk about domestic violence in groups with other people. I actually started that dialogue within my head. And then what happened is I started to meet other people that started to open up and share. And so we started to build a community. I say all that to say this, like, GOGI has been a life-changing event for me. And I like to think that I represent real change. I went from being a hopeless lifer to being employed, owning my own car. I own a motorcycle. I live in a house. I'm available to not only my immediate family, but my friends, and by extension, the GOGI lifers. And so imagine my surprise to meet the GOGI lifers, to meet Paul and Susie and Simi, and to be invited into this Tuesday night group about 1 week after I got out of prison. And I started to share and identify with their stories. And we quickly became a community. I kind of want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to share some words from Coach Taylor that's out of our Positive Community, the GOGI Way workbook, and to give you a little understanding of how this program works. This is by Coach Taylor. Power for Positive Communities. It is possible to create a world where all children are taught the GOGI Life tools. It is possible all children can use these simple tools to create their amazing life experience. Imagine adults modeling positive decision-making through their personal practice of the GOGI Life tools. Children would witness meaningful and purposeful, purpose-driven lives which would positively inform their own choices. Imagine a universal language of internal freedom shared by all cultures, a language that unites rather than divides. While it may seem this vision of communities is a utopia difficult to imagine, this is the world that's unfolding along my journey as the founder and first volunteer for the nonprofit organization Getting Out by Going In, GOGI. I have seen children learning the GOGI Life tools from their parents who model their use. These parents chart a path different for their offspring than one they experience, because they experience the GOGI Life tools as making their efforts as parents successful. They eagerly share them with their children. The GOGI Life tools were developed in collaboration with thousands of incarcerated individuals, and I have seen them model what it's like to live an internally free life. I have enjoyed community members coming to realize that if someone emerging out of prison can live an internally free life, then it would be reasonable to assume just about anyone else could live internally free as well. Coach Taylor and the process to become a coach is a lengthy one. The GOGI coaches that you'll meet and today and in the future, if you decide to join us in the GOGI Lifers group, they had to undergo a curriculum that's kind of like the college curriculum. And there are categories like my life story category, which is mandatory, victim impact, power up book reports, with love coach, teach me how to GOGI, anger management, release prep, insight development, and many, many more books. The GOGI Life tools are shared on a calendar. And this calendar unites us in the study of GOGI. So we have a certain tool for a certain week, and we study that tool and we hold that tool amongst us. The GOGI Lifers are dedicated to bringing the tool of decision-making outside prison walls and into at-risk communities, providing a clear pathway to prevention of criminal decisions in the future. The positive culture of GOGI results from excellence in simplified and relatable decision-making solutions delivered as self-study in small learning groups and as formal leadership training programs. This culture is further supported in the community by media, social media, volunteerism, and community engagement focused on sharing the GOGI tools for positive decision-making. GOGI is the voice for everyone who is willing to become the solution for the challenges within themselves and their communities. At this time, I'd like to introduce some of the GOGI Lifers, and what they're going to do is they're going to represent a tool, and that tool and share a life experience of what they've experienced with that tool. And it is with great pleasure that I invite Siolo into the circle and for him to introduce Boston McCrane.
Thank you, Coach James. Today I'll be speaking to you about the GOGI Life tool, Boss of My Brain. But before I get into that, I just want to take a few minutes while I had this opportunity and had this platform to just kind of shout out my GOGI family. And, I just want to tell all of you and give you your flowers, and just let you guys know that just what an impact you all had on have on my life since I joined this group. And the GOGI tools are working for me, and it's just been so empowering. And I just want to say how I look forward to every Tuesday to our Zoom meetings, and to hear you all, your positives and your weekly intentions, and I'm just humbled by some of your positives are something as simple as holding your grandchild or getting a job interview, and I realize that a lot of you are just getting home from like 20-year bids, 15-year bids, and the way you guys show the way you guys handle life. And the one thing that I'm humbled by is there's no self-pity. There's no blame on society. There's no blame on your drug addiction or whatever's going on. You take these life tools and you use them effectively. And for that, I'm inspired by that. And so I'm so proud to be a member of the GOGI family. And I hope that today I represent you all in explaining this life tool. And so with that, I just want to explain, this is the first GOGI life tool, and it's called the Boss of My Brain. And Coach James stated that everything starts from a thought. And so for us to be the boss of our brain, we've got to master our thoughts. And so the objective behind Boss of My Brain is to realize that we have control of our thoughts. And once we realize that we're the boss of our thinking, as a result, we become the boss of our own life experiences. And so how do we master and how do we become the boss of our brain? Well, in the GOGI Life Tools, in the book, there's keywords to being the boss of your brain. And those keywords are more or less these three parts that are in your brain that control your thinking, or to some degree, you let them have control of your thinking. And so these three parts in your brain that control your thinking are the smart part of your brain, which is located just above your forehead, or the pineal gland, I like to say. And so this is where all the action is, right? This is where all the critical thinking happens. This is where you process the information. And this is the smart part of your brain, because this part of your brain is where all the growth takes place. This is where learning all the information takes place. And this is where you make positive decisions. And so with the GOGI Life Tools, that's what it is. It's only positive decision making. None of the tools in GOGI has anything to do with negativity. And so the smart part of our brain is what we want to access. And then we have the emotional part of our brain, which is just above our ears and in the center of our brain. And that is where all our emotions are stored. And so when we're utilizing this tool, we need to think, okay, do I want my emotions to control this conversation, or do I want it to control my thoughts? And then there is the third part, which is our old habits part of our brain. And this is located in the back of your head, just above your neck. And it's pretty self-explanatory. When you're utilizing this tool, you want to assess if you want your old habits to be in control of your thoughts. And so now you've got these tools. And once I learned these tools, I thought, okay, so how do I use these tools? How do I become the boss of my brain with these tools? And so I started to exercise this through conversation. And just like anything else, realization, right? How do you tap into the smart part of your brain? It's the realization, identification. Once you realize that you're operating in a certain part of your brain, guess what? The smart part of your brain now is activated. And the smart part of your brain is like that, it's like your homie that pulls up. He just pulls up on you like, hey, bro, I'm here to help you. I got some positivity. This is how you're gonna handle the situation. And so you will always want to activate that smart part of your brain by realizing who's in control. And it's okay if you want your emotional part to have control. And so for me, if I'm having a discussion with my wife, maybe I want to go there in an emotional, but it's always in a positive light. It's an emotion showing, I love you, baby. I appreciate what you're doing. And if I'm using the old habits, I'm using it as a learning tool. Maybe I'm talking from a place of my past, and I want to use it for someone to grow. But until you realize that, you will never access that smart part of your brain. And so daily exercises of interactions and recognizing what part of your brain you're using, it's one way to recognize and be the boss of your brain. And in this format of domestic violence, to be the boss of your brain, if you are a victim, say you're the victim of a child or a abusive relationship. Well, if you're the boss of your brain, guess what? That is the last day you are a victim. Because when you're the boss of your brain, you recognize, you realize, you identify that you are in an abusive relationship and that maybe it's an emotional chokehold that someone has on you. Or maybe it's your old habits is why you stay. So once you realize that, guess who's pulling up? Smart part of your brain is pulling up on you. It's like, hey, get in here. We're getting out of this relationship. We're stepping away from this. You're done. And if you're an abuser, if you're an abuser in a relationship, and if you're the boss of your brain, well, guess what? That's the last day you are an abuser. Because if you are the boss of your brain, we don't abuse people. And we know that abusing comes from a place of hurt. It comes from a place of not understanding, not being able to communicate. And guess who's pulling up on you? The smart part of your brain. It lets you know, this ain't where it's at, Solo. Let's be better. Let's be the boss of our brain. And so I love this boss of my brain because it's the cornerstone tool. And until we master our brain, we can't move forward in life, and you can't be a friend, a brother, and you can't grow as a human. And so I just want to leave you with the boss of my brain statement of ownership. And this is, I say this to myself all the time when I'm feeling down and I can't go on and I feel like I'm not the boss of my brain. And this kind of keeps me relevant, keeps me, like Coach James says, on calendar. And so boss of my brain statement of ownership. I am the boss of my brain, and I claim control over each thought I create. Because I am the boss of my brain, I can change my thoughts at any time. No one has control of my thoughts because only I am the boss of my brain. And so you say that to yourself anytime you feel down and you can't go on and you feel like you can't get your thoughts in order. And I hope that you practice boss of your brain. And I promise you, it's going to make you a better person. It's going to help your relationships, and it's just going to help you be a better person in life. So, and with that, I want to turn it over to Coach Johnny. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Brother Siolo and the rest of the GOGI family. It's an amazing opportunity to be here, to share my experience and my hope and my strength, what I've developed through GOGI and it helping me become the man I am today. So for myself, my name is Coach Johnny. I was born in Hawthorne, California. I was raised by the California Department of Corrections. So for me, I went to prison at the age of 17. I committed a crime that sends me to 15 to life. But as you could probably tell, they call me butter knife. I'm not that sharp. It took me 28 years to get out. And so what happened was, in the first 20 years that I was in prison, I lived as a criminal. I was arrested in prison for selling drugs, assaults, and things like that. And after about 20 years of incarceration, I ended up going to what we call the Board of Prison Hearings, which was I had an opportunity to actually get out. So I appear in front of them, and I walk in there, and they ask me some questions, and don't take it serious at all. And right before I leave, the commissioner says, "Hey, you know what, Mr. Howe?" He said, "I've been doing this for 35 years." He said, "I could spot a fake and a fraud in a minute." He said, "You know what? You're a fake and a fraud." And for me, I was like, "Don't you know who I think I am?" And when I went back to my cell and smoked weed and drank hand sanitizer, I started thinking about what he said, and I was like, "Man, I am a fake and a fraud. Like, I'm trying to be all these different people to all these, to these different people. I want to be different people." So what happened was, in about 2010, this lady walks into the gym, and she's by herself, and there's 100 men, and she's looking confident, and I'm like, she has something that is, something that other people want. And when she walked in there, she said, "If you want to be free, be of service to your community." And I didn't know what it meant, but I wrote it down. And what happened was, I started getting more involved with GOGI. I started learning. I started actually teaching the tools to other people. I started sharing my story. And what happened was I would go to visit, and there'd be people there, and they'd be like, "Mom, this is the guy that helped me come home." Or they would introduce me to their sons and daughters and be like, "Hey, this is the guy that's helping me, get home to you." And I was like, man, that's the feeling that I've been searching for my whole life when I was using drugs and, getting in trouble in prison and drinking hand sanitizer and burping and farting bubbles. So for me, I learned that life is much more than just being selfish and thinking about myself. So once I paroled, within a week, Coach Taylor called me, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to work in the mailroom?" And actually, that's where I'm at right now. We're in the mailroom. We're answering hundreds of letters, and I've learned that life, like my purpose. One thing that GOGI taught me was my purpose. The purpose to be of service, to help other people. James didn't share this, but I actually had the opportunity to meet James while he was still incarcerated. One of the only GOGI members I've met who had signs of GOGI and stickers and chains and bracelets and everything else. He was GOGI for life. And I knew that as soon as I seen him. And it's an honor to see him out here. It's an honor to meet brothers like Joe and Siolo and Simi, sisters like Sincera and Susie. So the tool that I'll be presenting to you today is called What If? And the key words are, what if I'm not my past? No to the past, yes to the future. So for me, one thing that I've come to learn is, like, I've experienced domestic violence in a lot of different realms. The first time I experienced domestic violence was when I was a young man, about 5, 6, 7 years old. And my mother, she was very abusive to my dad. He was my stepfather. And he was somebody who wasn't really participating in drinking alcohol or, staying up late. And one time he rented a small car for us to go to the movies in, and me and my sister complained about it. So my mom was like, "You know what, take us home." So he took us home, and as he walked through the door, she grabbed a blanket and threw it in his face and said, "You know what, you're gonna go sleep in that car." And for me, I was like, "Damn, my mom's a gangster," but I didn't recognize the domestic violence. And she would go around him when we would stay up drinking late at night and having other people at my house. She would have everybody go around him, probably like 10 people stand around him while he was, going to sleep in the living room. And she would sing this song. I apologize in advance for my singing, but she would sing this song called Party Pooper. And it said, "Everybody has a pooper, that's why we invited you. Party Pooper." And she would point at him and laugh. And I didn't understand the pain that he may have went through, the embarrassment, how he felt as a man to be humiliated in front of everybody. And I didn't consider that domestic violence at the time. And as I grew up, I was around certain people that I called homies at the time. And I would hear how they would talk to their wives and their girlfriends, and they would always use the B word. And even though I didn't talk like that, I still contributed to domestic violence because I didn't say anything to them. I didn't stand up for these women. I didn't tell them that what they were doing was wrong. Sharing with the men that I was with, like, hey, you don't talk to people like that. But I didn't say that. I was a coward, and I lived as a coward the majority of my life. And it came to a point where I wanted something different. And what happened was I got introduced to GOGI. So as I got introduced to GOGI, I had the opportunity to create videos and work on books and be of service, but I was still living like a criminal when I first started. So one of the things that I did as a result was I would talk to many women at one time, and I would study women like it was a college course, and I would read books and take notes and do stuff like that to manipulate women so that I could not be alone. So what happened was Coach Taylor did a video of me and a few other guys, and she sent that video to one of the girls that I was talking to. And that girl sent the video to my godmother. My godmother posted it, and another girl that I was talking to seen the video. And as I called, she was like, so who's this? And I was like, damn, I'm busted. And what happened was I ended that relationship. And it came to a point in my life where one of the girls had told me, you know, the guy that I was married to put me into the hospital, gave me stitches, broke my arm. And she said, but you know what? The pain that you caused me was worse than that. And I realized like that's not the kind of person that I want to be. So what happened was I got more involved with GOGI, and I started like addressing some of my underlying issues. Like, why was it okay to treat women like that? Why was it okay to lie to them and their families and their kids? And part of it, as an excuse, I share this as some of the root causes and some of the contributing factors of the choices that I made in my life. And part of that had to do with when my mother passed away in '96. I was barely 6 years into my prison sentence, and I had made up a story, and I had self-talk going on that told me, if your mother leaves you, every other woman's going to leave you too. So through that conversation, that internal conversation, I justified my actions and my behaviors. And today, I understand the power of self-talk. I understand the positive being boss of my brain. Like the brother explained, like only I am the boss. And do I want to be a good boss? So today, after that situation took place, what happened was I prayed. I said, God, look, this is what I want in a woman. I want somebody who's strong, who's a great mother, who's a great daughter, who's, you know, fears God, who loves God, who just an amazing human being. And God delivered my wife, G-Rep Cynthia. We do GOGI together. We have GOGI date night on Friday nights. I'm not paying tonight, just so she knows. I have the opportunity to grow with her. I have an amazing daughter and son. I have two amazing grandbabies who I live for. I used to say that I would die for things. Today I live for things. And that's part of what I live for. So for me, understanding the power of GOGI, the power of being a leader. I've been out of prison 4 years. And I know for me, it wasn't because of my own self-will. It was because of my GOGI family. It was because of my wife, my daughter, my son, and definitely my grandbabies. And it's like people on the screen today, even though if we've never met or I've never met you, or I guarantee we'll have the opportunity Tuesday night. If you want to join us and you want to be a part of this family, we don't turn anybody down. We accept everybody, we love everybody, and we know how these tools can work. So as a GOGI coach, I want to tell my family, my wife, my daughter, and whoever else listening, welcome to the GOGI family. We love you, and just continue to be of service. And one thing that GOGI preaches is being free is up to me. And understanding that if I can choose freedom, because no disrespect to most people, but I've seen more free people in prison than I have out here. And what I've come to learn is that that's a choice. And we invite you to make that choice today through GOGI. So thank you for your love and your concern and your commitment. And thank you for listening. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to my brother Joe, who is an amazing human being, and we love him to death. You got it, Joe.
First thing first, I'd like to thank our Heavenly Father for this life He has given me and the trials and the tribulation that He has helped me overcome. I'm Joseph Motoni Muti Jr. The tool that I will be representing is the tool of choices. the three P's. Is the choice I made powerful, productive, and is it positive? I was born in Tonga. And raised in Mateo, and then I came out here. My dad passed away at the age of 12, and growing up, it was hard because my mom had to raise all six of us by herself, and I was the one the oldest out of the boys that always get in trouble, always in and out. And when I got locked up, or when I got incarcerated, I learned how to read and stuff because in school at a young age, I never wanted anybody to know that I didn't know how to read, because they would have made fun of me as I was dumb. So I used to take my anger out on beating up kids that made fun of me and stuff. And once I got locked up, I started to learn how to read, and learning how to read was the one tool that I needed the most, was the knowledge that the book and everybody that was teaching me or was telling me at a young age. And how my choices damaged my community and the people around me that are around me. At the time, I thought that the things that I enjoy was getting from the from the choices that I made. And the same choices that I made at a young age and stuff led me to be incarcerated. Then I began to understand the things that the consequences of the choices that I made. The consequences has taught me so much about the choices that I made, because it showed me pain, struggle, and consequences is like the perfect teacher to all the choices that I have made in my past. As I was sitting inside in my cell, reflecting on what my mom says, and one of the cell right next to me was making songs and stuff, and I asked him, "Hey, you have any poem or anything?" And he said, "Oh, I got some for you." And so his poem that he wrote is called "The Man in the Glass." When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you a king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it is your father, for it isn't your father or your mother, your wife, also your friends who judge judgment judgment upon you must pass. The fellow who victimize count most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. Some might say you're straight shooting and call you a wonderful guy, but the man in the mirror say you're only a bum if you can't look him straight in the eye. He, the fellow man, the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he with you up until the end. Your past, you must destroy. It's the most difficult test in if the man in the glass is your friend, you might fool the whole world down your pathway of your years and get pat on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be a headache and tears if you cheat the man in the glass. So he read this to me when I was inside, and then I was just amazed by the talent that a lot of people has inside. Sometimes I realize losing my freedom was the greatest blessing, because I learned that the choices that I made, I damaged my family and the people that I love around me, emotionally, financially, and the ripple effect of my choices has affected the ones that was looking up to me. So I got out, and I learned, when I was inside, I learned that nonprofit is a thing that people donated, businesses and stuff donated to. So I started using up all the time that I had in there, because there was a lot of people that was owners of companies that they own, and then they got caught, and then that's why they're inside. But I took the time to get to know them, because I wouldn't get no kind of information from a lot of the CEO companies that's out here. I can't walk straight up to them and get that kind of information. And while I was learning from them, and I told them that I got a group of friends that are always ready to help one another. Like when funeral happen, we all put in money, we throw it in. So what would be the best kind of business for a group like that? And he told me nonprofit. And then I started looking up nonprofit, and I started getting myself in situation where I don't want to be in, but it was a good, uncomfortable situation, like right now. And running into Susie and them. And we started this, the first time I got introduced to GOGI was one of our members from Kalapuaima'a went to a birthday thing and ran into Susie, and Susie asked him what we do in our kalapu. And then he told them that we just got into nonprofit and turning the kalapu into a LLC, so that way we can do something productive. And Susie brought me in to tag me in a lot of the thing, and I always try to ignore it and stuff at time. But when I hopped on, I seen the love that the GOGI members had. The experience that they have helped me comprehend my my situation. And now me and my family and some of the club member, we go feed the homeless every Saturday. We try, but the choices that I made now is a lot more a lot more productive, a lot more powerful, and positive. I think positive, and the joy from doing the service is the smile from the other person gives me a joy, because I see that they appreciate it more than I do, even though it's small for me, but to them it's a lot. And it's just like with my freedom, I didn't realize that freedom is a privilege. And a lot of us don't realize that a lot of our choices that we make daily, we don't notice that can lead, that can cost you a couple years inside. But a lot of people make choices based off how they feel and the situation they're in and the circumstances they're in. And those choices goes against what I value most of the time. And I realized that with some of this too, the GOGI family, their situation and stuff make me feel better, because I thought I was doing bad. And when I sit there and listen to the situation that they're in, it's nothing compared to what these guys, like Coach James and Johnny and the rest of the members of the family, that they went through. But before I finish, I realized when I was inside, the people that writes quotes and stuff, they pass away, but the only way that they're living now is because they left something behind. So I figured that I took the time when I was inside to make use of myself, that hopefully one day that I can write something, put something together that can help me, that can help me be remembered in this life for something good. Our past behavior predicts our future behavior. Under any circumstances, always do your best to find the strength and the courage in you to gain the knowledge and the wisdom you need to doubt your doubt before you doubt yourself, to learn to listen and listen to learn, to always seek first to understand, then to be understood, to acknowledge your past so you can do a little bit better today than yesterday, because you are who you are today because of the choice you made yesterday. And I would like to leave that off with you guys, and I appreciate, and there you go.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you,
Now
Johnny.
pass it to James.
Thank you very much, Joe, and thank you, Johnny and Siolo. So for those of you on the panel, you might be thinking, why GOGI Life Tools? The GOGI Life Tools provide an easy way for an individual to get or remain on course for creating an optimal life. The GOGI Life Tools were developed through incorporating effective and proven psychological strategies for behavioral change into a simplified methodology for easy use. These modalities for change were focused with human excellence practice gleaned from science, religions, and cultures from across the globe. The GOGI Life Tools were created over a 20-year period, working with hundreds of thousands of individuals who were seeking help when nothing else seemed to work. They decided a new method for change was needed. What are the sets of tools? The GOGI Life Tools are divided into 4 sets of tools. This makes them easy to remember, as each set of tools has a specific function. The 4 sets are the tools of the body, the tools of choice, the tools of moving forward, and the tools of creation. You've heard a little bit about the GOGI Tools today, and we would like it very much for you to join our Tuesday night group. One thing that I neglected to mention earlier is that since 2015, there has been over 38,000 certificates for inmates in prison that are doing this type of work. There's over 220,000 individuals enrolled in the GOGI program, and they're tracked on tracking sheets like this. So they have a proof documentation of everything that they've done GOGI. They issue out report cards. And one of the most amazing statistics that GOGI has today is out of the 150 certified community coaches that became coaches in prison, we have 0% recidivism. That means none of the GOGI coaches to date have went back to prison. And this is an amazing statistic for somebody like myself or Johnny that went to jail when we were kids, and we stayed in jail our whole adult lives. And so we're out here leading a successful reentry. And not only that, the other GOGI lifers, the sisters, the brothers, the community members that have been affected by our incarceration, they have a safe space as well and a voice to be heard. This is some of the work that we're doing in the GOGI lifers, and we encourage you all to get involved. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open up the panel to any questions.
We have time for just one question. Sorry, we're running into the next panel.
Everybody's eating. Everyone's on lunch.
If there are any questions, if there are no questions, I want to thank each of you for paneling today. Our GOGI family, our GOGI men. For the CEU credit, today your code is for this session, orange. Thank you everyone so much for participating. We can head back to the next. Did you have a question, Coach James?
Can we end with the pledge with
Oh,
Paul?
yeah.
Can you cue up Paul?
I
I
don't
think,
know if you had it.
sis, I think we have it, and I think,
Yeah,
Okay,
we got a pledge.
we'll end with the pledge, and then after
Coming
the
up.
pledge,
Coming up to you.
we can go back to the main Zoom room for the next panel.
Thank you. At the end of every GOGI meeting, we always end with the pledge, and we want to do this to honor Mighty Paul, one of the original GOGI lifers. If you could repeat after Paul.
Thank you for everybody's check-in. I appreciate everyone sharing and look forward to our check-in for next week. And for your intentions were wonderful. I'm going to do our GOGI Pledge of Service. All students of GOGI unite with our GOGI Pledge of Service. This pledge defines our purpose and is repeated at the end of every Power Up community meeting. Remaining in your peer mentor circles, each group will rotate leading the pledge for the larger group as we close this Power Up community meeting. We unite as a community with our pledge to be of service. Please repeat after me. The GOGI Pledge of Service. May our commitment
May our
commitment
to the study of GOGI
to the study of GOGI
grant us the joy
grant us the joy
of giving and receiving.
of
giving and receiving,
so that our inner freedom
so that our inner freedom
may be of maximum service
may
may
be
be
of
maximum
maximum
service
service
to those we love
to those we love
and infinite others.
and infinite others.